Hey guys, how you guys doing? My fellow OWJs. I'll be talking about a comment which a man named Richard made, which is right here. And he said, what would you recommend to a man who was raised in church, but this life that we live in the world has kind of made him cold and a lack of a better word from God, but he wants a relationship with him. So what I would recommend, not just to him, but to everybody who is raised in church and feels like they're not good enough or feels like they can't receive the word like they used to, is that we need to stand for Christ, right? We need to stand for Christ. The more we stand for him, the more our relationship will develop with him. But it's not just that. It's not just standing for Christ. It's also having a relationship with him. How do we build relationships with people? We have to ask ourselves that. How do we build relationships with people? We talk to them, right? We get to know them, right? How do we get to know God? By reading his word. Specifically, if you read the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, that'll help you to get to know Jesus, which is God incarnate. Or in other words, which is God descended himself from heaven into a body, and he called himself Jesus. And then I would also read Proverbs, which gives you the mind of Jesus, or the mind of Christ. So, four Gospels tells you how Jesus acts, how God acts. The Proverbs kind of gives you a way of God's thinking. And then I would read Psalms. Straying away from that subject, I would read Psalms because it talks about a man named David and how he still sinned so many times. He committed murder, he committed adultery, he committed a ton of things. But he still earned the title, a man after God's own heart. So one, you need to get to know God by reading the four Gospels, by watching Proverbs and reading Proverbs. Then two, you need to read Psalms so that way you get to realize that we're sinners. I mean, Paul, who wrote half the New Testament, said, I am the chief of sinners. If a righteous man like that can say I'm the chief of sinners, then we're even worse. Because I don't know about you, but I haven't wrote half of the New Testament, or I haven't done half of the things that Paul did. So I ask you today, the biggest thing you can do is what? Is have a relationship with God. And by that is what I said to do. Along with prayer. If you go into in Matthew 6, it will talk about being prayer in a prayer closet. Not praying outside and let everybody see you, but prayer as in secret. So the Father only knows what you are doing, right? Because you don't need to have everybody else watching you pray and watching you praise God. No, it's a thing between you and God only. Nobody else needs to know your business, right? So those are what I would recommend for a man or a woman who was raised in church and felt incomplete or felt like they weren't good enough, or in other words felt that they couldn't receive the word better. For us to receive the word, we need to get to know him, because we can't receive somebody's word from a stranger, right? We can't. For example, are you going to take the word of somebody you just met? You don't take the word of somebody you just met 5 minutes ago? No. You need to trust him, right? It's the same way. Even though we should trust God automatically because he's God and he's not going to lie to us because he's pure and righteous in all accounts. But to our flesh, foolish flesh, we need to get to know him, right? And not just to trust him, but also to to preserve ourselves in Him. Well, that's what I would recommend. It was a longer video, but I believe I said everything I thought of and everything that God gave to me to say. I would recommend liking and subscribing as well. Gotta support the channel, right? Alright guys, my fellow OWJs, have a good day.